what you think the science, all the sciences together, what do they show? That the Earth is closer to 6,000 years old?
I'm trying,
or
tell me
4 million?
specifically which science are you speaking of?
Well,
Apparently,
geology,
apparently
physics,
it's 1,000 different
radiation,
examples, just give me one.
Carbon dating.
geology, radiation, carbon dating.
Okay,
and
okay, have you studied carbon dating and
That's-
radioactive dating of rocks?
Yeah.
You have both sides of the issue, or one side.
It's also
How much you read about the fact that carbon dating is reliable? You read anything like that?
Yeah. Do you believe in
Have
plate
you?
tectonics?
Yeah, I believe in tectonics. I believe in the confident
Plate tectonics, that the continents
they
move.
moved and caused all kinds of problems. Yes, see, I believe that.
And so the Himalayas were created within the last 6,000 years?
I told you it's an open question.
Well, okay.
And
so
you're asking what science says, and I'm asking you which science
I
you're
don't
talking
think it's
about.
open to science. I think science has
Science interprets data.
proven.
Scientists interprets data, you understand? They interpret data based on what they think is true. And a lot of the stuff they think is true, there's a lot of problems
That's
with
not
it.
science.
There's a lot of problems with it that you don't acknowledge because you don't open your mind to it. Yes.
What about Darwin? On his deathbed, he's saying this theory.
Charles Darwin.
This theory that I had was shaky at best. I had no idea it was going to be so viral. Okay, and he died on his deathbed being a Christian.
Well, there's no, I don't know about he died on deathbed being Christian. I don't. I've heard that, but I've never heard it.
And the same thing with
But-
C.S. Lewis. He
Well,
was
C.S.
out
Lewis is
to
obviously
prove-
Christian, right?
he was an atheist and out
Yeah.
to prove Christianity
Mhm.
wasn't true, and he ended up being a
Right.
believer.
All right, to give you a little primer of that, Darwin saw microevolution in different species. He documented it very carefully. He then extrapolated in his work that microevolution, as you were talking about, Bill, is no difference in macroevolution given billions of years. That it all would happen and then you could go from one species to another. So Darwin believed that. But Darwin understood very clearly in his books and in the history of his writings that his theory was without much evidence at all in it. And he knew that fossil record did not reflect what he believed. So people start talking about Darwin as some kind of god. I think Charles Darwin was a good scientist. I think he saw things that were true. But because of his bias at that time, he extrapolated it so that he could show there was no God, that evolution occurred naturally. He didn't really believe that. He didn't understand that in his later years. What if somebody else had not spoken? Had anybody else? All right, real quick.
Do you think if drawing the line between micro and macro, do you think if two hominids, ape-like creatures, walking upright, one group has tails and the other doesn't, is that sufficient evidence that they're two species?
I am not a, what is the word you would use?
Well, would you draw that? Would you say there's a line, a clear line?
Because one has a tail and one doesn't have a tail? I'd say there are probably two different variations on the same species, possibly.
Well, you know, some of humans are born with tails.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, but none of us are born with beaks like a bird.
But Bill,
Which
are you
indicates to
trying to
me-
prove evolution to
which
me by just
indicates-
saying we're not born with beaks? Or some of us are born with tails? That's a proof of macroevolution? Seriously?
Because other hominids have tails, and we have the remnants of a tailbone, okay, shows the evolutionary pattern, but no human babies come out with a bird's beak, because evolution shows we are not evolved
Okay.
from a common bird animal, okay?
Okay, since
But-
humans don't come out with birds' beaks, that's proof of macroevolution. Or you're saying that there's a piece of gristle back here in our tailbone that some people have said, hey, that was the remnants of the tail. And that's proof of macroevolution? You'd be thrown out of court,
Some
man.
of them are pretty long.
You'd be thrown out of court if you're trying to argue the case in court that was true. Yes, Ben.
I think I read someplace, tell me if I'm wrong, I'm not so sure on it, but I heard that carbon dating is only valid up to 5,000 years, and then after that it's more.
No, they say it's valid to 50,000 years. But here's, because of the age of, the half-life of carbon-14. Look, if you guys want to get into carbon dating and radioactive dating, I'd be glad to do that. It's very technical, okay? It's very technical, and I will tell you this, that I've read both sides of it, and what you're going to find out is the people who do radioactive testing that publish their books on how old a rock is, know it's not accurate. They think it's kind of accurate, but they know it's not accurate. There is way too much assumptions made in dating, especially carbon-14 dating. The assumption made in carbon-14 dating is the amount of carbon-14 in the atmosphere has been the same now until the beginning of time. That is the assumption that's made. And when something dies, it stops producing carbon. And you can then figure out how much carbon-14 should have been there when they died and how much is left, and it gives you a date. Understand? That's carbon dating. That assumes 6,000 years ago, if you will use that, the same amount of carbon-14 is in the atmosphere it is today. That is a terrible assumption. They have no idea how much carbon-14 was in the atmosphere 6,000, 10,000 million years ago. They have no idea. Yet they base all of their dating of what I would say organic material from carbon dating 14. It's based on assumptions. You throw the assumptions out, it means nothing.
Every archaeologist in the world would disagree with you. Every single one.
They would agree with me that they would agree with me that they can tell you for a fact that 10,000 years ago the same amount of carbon-14 was in the atmosphere.
I don't know.
I
know carbon.
Did you agree or disagree with that?
What, can't be able to pull that off.
Thank you.
The,
Yeah, this is yes.
All right, okay, well, I understand what you're saying, that the vast majority of
Carbon dating is a recognized scientific.
Of course it's
process.
recognized, Harry. I've never
Every
said it.
archaeologist uses it. You can't deny
I didn't
that.
say that every archaeologist doesn't use it,
I
Harry.
talked to archaeologists. They say that you can use it reliably up to 40 to 50,000 years. That's a fact.
And they say, because they can prove to you that 50,000 years ago, the amount of carbon-14 in the...
We know the rate at which it decays.
Well, you're missing the point. I know they know the rate at which it decays, don't get me wrong, it's 5,700 years. I understand that, okay? Question is, you know why you can do carbon-14 dating? Okay, because all the carbon in your body, a certain percentage of it is carbon-14. And as long as you're living, you're producing more carbon-14. Now you're producing it, you're taking it in, and it ends up in your body. And that carbon-14 comes from ultraviolet rays from the sun, turning nitrogen-14 into carbon-14. Did you know that? Okay. Every plant and every animal that has carbon in it, every other thing that's carbon in it, as long as they're living, that carbon-14 is going to be the same. But if they die, you quit producing carbon. Then you can take that leftover, whatever it is, organic material, and you can figure out how old it is based on how much carbon-14 is left. Again, I'm not saying that that's not true. I am saying it's not true. I'm not saying that that's not the science. It is the science. The question I had was, that you didn't answer, how do you know 10,000 years ago or 50,000 years ago that carbon-14 that's in the atmosphere and in the plants and life was the same as it is now?
well, if you don't know and you are going on the assumption, I
You
don't
make an
know,
assumption, you know what you're doing?
then what you're saying, I don't believe in the validity of carbon-14 dating.
I don't believe in the validity of scientists' interpretations of a lot of things, and that is one of them, because they have no proof as to how the carbon was in 40,000, 50,000, even 3,000 years ago. They have no proof, they don't know.
Assuming it based upon.
Their
maybe they're
assumption.
Assuming it based upon certain statistics, certain probabilities, etc.
How are you going to do probabilities of what the
But
carbon-14
I don't know.
content in the atmosphere
I'm not
50,000 years
I'm
ago
not
is?
discussing the logic of what's being said.